What's up YouTube and Twitch, Demi here with the next How I Make So Much Currency video. For those of you that are unaware of what this series is, it's an ongoing series. I think there's 8 parts now, where basically I'm going to show you screenshots from stuff that I've sold. I'm going to try to explain what the items are for, like what kind of builds are using them, and what items, or what mods on the items are actually really good. So this is going to encompass basically all of Abyss League until now, which is about 2 weeks before the end of the league. These videos are also fairly long, but there is a ton of knowledge, so you can just like sit back, relax, and just try to learn as much as you can. Hopefully it'll help teach you like what kind of mod combinations are valuable, help you learn to start price checking your gear more aggressively and pricing it more aggressively, and just overall enjoy the game more because you're able to make more currency with what you're picking up. So we'll go ahead and get started here. This is at the beginning of Abyss League, right? Yeah, this is a volatile dead damage enchant Devotos. I was trying for an attack damage enchant, but enchants like this of meta skills, like they're worth a lot of currency, so you just try to sell them as fast as possible. Here's another one. This is an I-84 helmet with Flicker Strike damage on it, so it sold for 15 chaos. It wasn't rolled yet, it's just a high item level helmet. You just like run them through Uber Lab, get a good enchant on them for literally any build, and then throw those up for sale. Here we have a very weird jewel. I don't know why this was bought, but I mean it's got totem damage, totem resistance, maximum life, which I think is the good rolls here. A little bit of global crit. Sold it to a Scion. I'm not really sure what build they were playing. Here's another example of a good Uber Lab enchant with Molten Strike projectiles, which is like best in slot enchant for Molten Strike for the most part, on a Rat's Nest, so it's really good for like crit Molten Strike build. And I believe this guy was an Inquisitor. I'm playing some sort of high LE damage build with it, so that sold. These are weird. I think I picked these up corrupted. I'm not 100% how I got these actually, but it's Tri-Res, Life, Hybrid Life, Movement Speed, so like extremely high resistance boots with life and movement speed are worth quite a bit already. This had a lot of like, it had more than just the normal tiers of life, which goes up to I think 89 max on boots. It also had a hybrid roll on top of that, so this is like really, really good. The only thing that's bad about this is it's corrupted, so you can't enchant it, but 20x I'll take it. And here we have another example of the difference between standard and Abyss. Tri-Res life boots in Abyss, 5C. This is actually funny. I picked up this Flesh Ripper like this with all the rolls except for the crafted attack speed off the ground, and I think it was like a 450 DPS two-handed axe at the beginning of a league. This is like probably day 2 or 3 of league, so this was like half an X for that, which is pretty funny. Now what do we have here? Oh, this is just a finished mirror item. Plague Lock, Siege Advised. So my mirror thread, it's probably not ever going to get mirrored because it's not Shaper or Elder, but triple T1 resist, T1 life, T1 armor, T1 movement speed. Pretty cool belt. And then I made the same belt, the exact same belt, immediately afterwards. This was like 17 minutes later, I ended up with the exact same belt. So this one's for sale, this one's in my thread. Here we have another example of an item you can enchant to make some profit off of. Calm's Roots is a pretty popular pair of boots across a lot of builds because it prevents you from being slowed, it prevents you from being stunned, has a lot of life on it. The only downside is it has no sockets and no movement speed. But if you enchant that with a good enchant, such as attack and cast speed, or like leech if you killed recently, damage penetrates elemental resistance if you haven't killed recently, stuff like that, they tend to sell for quite a bit, especially at the beginning of a league when people don't want to run lab to get that enchant. So that was 50 chaos. And here we have Biscos when they were stupidly high priced. This is actually not, I think the highest they went to at Abyss was like 20x. Well, this was a 99% quant one for 14.5x, I think, like 2 weeks into the league. We have Dark Pack damage, Devoto's Devotion. Dark Pack's not very meta this league because of the instant leech removal, but it's a well-rolled Devoto's, max chaos res, decent dex, 45Z. What do we got here? This is a high DPS Coral Ring, right? So Coral Rings, they have life implicit. You want life on them, and you also want resistances, and then damage if possible. This has attack speed, accuracy, phys 2 attacks, life resist. Like it's a good overall ring. Looks like this guy's a gladiator, so he's probably attack based. It's just got all the stats he wants on it, so it's an X. What do we got here? Phys damage, life, crit multi. The evasion rating and life regen are completely fucking useless, but the other rolls are nice, so it sells. This is a high life, decent amount of stats amulet. Also has mana on it, so it's good for like mind over matter builds and some crafted resistances. Just a good amount of overall stats. You got 50 strength, 40 int, 80 plus life, and some mana and resist. Like, it's just a good starter amulet. Alright, now we get into Abyss Jewels. These have like, they're all over the place, right? For Wanders, you want a ton of flat lightning damage or elemental damage to attacks. Crit multi is great, attack speed is great. This has 2 flat damage rolls and a crit multi-roll, so it's really, really good for a wander, such as a Pathfinder. And of course, Poet's Pen. This is like, I think this was probably the most sought after unique at the beginning of this league, because everybody was trying to make Poet's Pen builds for the Volatile Dead builds or Inquisitor or whatever it might have been. Yeah, this guy's not even ascended yet, but he's a Templar. He's probably going to go Inquisitor, Poet's Pen, Volatile Dead. But yeah, I got lucky on that drop. And here we have a Fizz damage, life, intelligence amulet. If you're on the bottom left side of the tree, like that guy's a gladiator, right? He's way down here. This side of the tree, you get a lot of strength, you get a lot of dex on this side, but here you have like basically 0 intelligence at all. So that side of the tree, if you're Resolute Technique or whatever you're playing down this side, you're going to need some int on your gear. And this has a fair amount of int. If it was blessed correctly, I think it'd go up to like, what, 60 int or so? With Fizz damage and life. Like, it's a good amulet for starter out, or for starting out. This was a mistaked screenshot. I think this was a level 21 wed. If you get level 20 quality gems and you corrupt them to +1 level or plus quality, they tend to get more value. I think I screenshotted this mostly because his name was Eggs, and I thought that was funny. What do we got here? Another good Abyss Jewel. It's got life, attack speed if you've dealt a crit recently, and crit multi if you've killed recently, so it's just good for a general attack-based crit build. And yeah, 40 chaos. What was this one? Oh, this is actually me buying the base for the #1 Leech DPS amulet, which is equipped on my Flying Purple People Slayer. I bought it from Afak, who was crafting with T0 Flat Fizz essences on amulets, and he hit the combinations that I wanted. So I bought the base from him and finished it later. Okay, so this is another item you can corrupt. If you pick up items like chess pieces, for example, that aren't worth anything without good implicits or without being 6-linked or whatever, all you have to do is quality them and then vol them. If they hit +1 socketed gems, like for example on this, Victario's Influence, it's already a +1 gems chest for Orobots. It's insanely high DPS for like Necromancer Orobots, and I corrupted it with +1 gems. At that point, because it's corrupted without links or sockets, you take it to Varici 8. And Varici allows you, if you have level 8 Varici, you can still socket and link corrupted items. It just adds a vol orb to the cost. So instead of it costing you 1500 fusings, it costs you 1500 fusings plus 1500 vol orbs, which sounds like a lot. But when I think I spent probably around 20 something X doing the socketing and linking, and I still made 36X back. So I mean, I didn't make 36 profit, but I made like, what, 15 profit or so? It can be a good idea to do that if you have the currency to invest into actually socketing and linking it. If you don't, you can just sell it as a non-linked +1 gems corrupted, and you'll probably still get a fair amount of currency for it because somebody else can do the linking for you. Right, another thing you can vol, unique jewels. If they have decent rolls, you can always vol them. The best corruption on jewels is usually cannot be cursed with silence. So that only can come out of like hex font mobs and strongboxes, the silence curse. But it means you can't cast spells. So when it comes to a summoner or like a caster, if you get silenced and you can't kill the enemies around you, you're gonna die. So you generally will want one of these at some point if you want to survive against that sort of stuff. So I mean, this jewel is usually like maybe 5 chaos. Because I evolved it with a good corruption, it became 50 chaos. Headhunter, everybody loves Headhunter. I personally hate Headhunter and hope they remove it from the game, so I tend to sell them as soon as I get them in trades or whatever, they're gone. This one was really high rolled, high life, perfect damage with hits, and then high strength dex, so I sold it immediately for 64x. Oh, this wasn't actually a sale, this is an ID. This is just funny. I was doing Guardians, right, and I went to vendor all the crap I picked up. I ID'd this ring, which has ES, life, mana, and like a ton of resistances. And I think when I went to price check this ring, it was like 20+X for anything similar, so pretty good ID. But again, the good mods, you have life, you have ES, you have a ton of resistances, and you have mana on top of that. So this is like basically good for any build that wants those stats, which I mean, Mind Over Matter, hybrid, or ES, or life builds could use this ring. Another good example of a +1 corruption. This was actually, I think we were coloring this. Yeah, it's really hard to get off colors on a Vault's Protector. It's an armor, which is like red sockets, and energy shield, which is blue. We hit 4 blue, or 4 green, sorry, so 4 off color on it. And he's trying to get in my colors, but we managed to hit way too many greens, so I don't know, it's just funny. What have we here? These are Insanity Gloves, so essences, you can craft items with them, and if you have a well-rolled essence crafted item, it tends to be really, really, really expensive compared to a standard item of the same rolls. Like, if this just had attack speed, life, and some resistances, it would be much, much cheaper. But because its socketed gems have 16% more, which is the essence of insanity, I don't know if I have one. Yeah, right here. This mod, like, it makes it much, much more expensive because these essences on their own are, I think, are like half an X or more. So getting a well-rolled one will sell for a lot. It also has an Uberlab enchant on top of that. Yeah, here's the finished Beast Scarab Onyx Amulet that you guys saw earlier, with the T0 Essence Flat Fizz, Elder maximum life leech per second, Elder non-chaos is extra chaos, Elder attack speed, and then T1 all res crafted int, or you can craft crit on it, whatever you want. It took a lot of divines to finish this thing. I think the total cost for this amulet was somewhere around like 1,000 exalts, which I'm probably never gonna make back. It hasn't been mirrored yet, so if you want to mirror it, it's in my mirror thread. Shout out. All right, what do we have here? This is a extremely good opal ring. So we have life and mana and wed, elemental damage with attacks. So it's good for mind over matter attack based builds. It also has around 110% resistances on top of that, which is a crazy amount of resistances. It would be worth more if it had like accuracy, attack speed, whatever, but like that much resistances is just hugely valuable. You basically need to have like 2/3/2 or 2 tier 2 or tier 1 rolls plus a craft to even come remotely close to that amount of resist. That's pretty cool. Alright, what do we have here? This is a Legacy ES helm, hybrid ES with life, and it has Temp Chain's Curse Effect on it, example of a really good Uberlab enchant. Temp Chain's Curse Effect, like if you have a high level character, or high level Temp Chains with a bunch of Curse Effect on the tree, and you get this on top of that and it multiplies it, like enemies can't move when they get cursed by you. Which basically means that you just get to freely move through them or kill them without them really attacking you, so solid sale there. Oh, these are weird. This is the same person in these two screenshots. I was like, what am I looking at here? So I crafted these scepters myself for PvP, sorry. They have damage penetrates resistances, and they have a ton of spell damage, added damage to spells, crit multi, reduced enemy block chance, which is how you know it's a PvP weapon. Because if you dual wield these, you get 12% global pen, and you get negative 30% reduced block chance. So if you're fighting against a character with 75-75 block, they become 40-40 block, which means they're a lot easier to kill. And I used to use these on my Glacial Cascade Miner in PvP, but I stopped using them and put them in my trade tabs, and then forgot they were there, and this person bought both of them for 18 and 36x. Which, I mean, pretty good profit for something that I alt-regaled and multi-modded. Alright, this is a perfect Glacial Cascade Mine Jewel. It's mine damage, area damage, crit multi with cold, and global crit multi. So like 4 property damage jewels with like perfect mods for specific builds will sell for a lot of currency, depending on how meta the build is. And I mean, Glacial Cascade this league has been pretty meta. So like, I don't know, you just have to price them accordingly with how meta the skill is. Since Glacial Cascade is stupidly popular, and this fits that build perfectly, 12x. What do we have here? Oh, this is just a weird corruption. So this is an anvil. Again, another example of a unique item you can corrupt for good mods, or good corruptions. Amulets can hit things like +1 frenzy, +1 curse, +1 max res, attack speed, weapon elemental damage, stuff like that, or like mana gained over a couple seconds when hit. But this actually turned into a rare, which is usually a bad thing, but it turned into a pretty good rare. It's got spell damage, crit multi, ES in ES, and a lot of lightning res. Like, I mean, I was just going to vendor it, but then I read the rolls and I was like, wow, that's kind of stupid. I'm going to throw that in a sale tab, and I sold the... It's usually like a 1C unique. I put a Vol Orb on it. 40 chaos profit. I mean, sure. What do we have here? Another high DPS opal ring. So we got life and wed again, right? Same as the other one. High. This is tier 1 life, tier 1 elemental damage with attack skills, right? And I multi-modded it for lightning damage to attacks and crit strike chance. So it's like 4 damage properties and some resistances. Having life and wed on the same item is pretty rare, but like I just multi-modded it after that and I made 20x out of it. Alright, Venter's Gambles. These are actually really easy to price check. To price check a Venter's Gamble, you basically just sort by the quantity of items found. That's the #1 and most important role in a Venter's, right? After that, you search for like resistances and then life. So to price check this one, I would just type in a minimum of 6 quant, minimum of, what is that, like 90 resistances, and then a minimum of like 50 life, and it would give me similar Venters. And this one happened to be worth around 4x, probably because it has really high life and really high resistances with decent quant rarity. 6 Link Wind Ripper. 6 Link meta uniques are usually 5 to 10x depending on what they are. Wind Ripper's usually around 8x in standard. This one's pretty high rolled, so I just dumped it. What do we have here? This is an interesting weapon. So this is a really high PDPS and Chaos DPS crit claw. I believe it was around, I can do the math for it actually. We'll show you how to do the math for DPS. So to calculate a weapon's DPS if you don't have a macro or something like that, you just add the minimum plus the minimum for this one, which would be 95 plus 63. That's the minimum. And then you add the maximum DPSs to that, so plus 210 plus 108. That is your damage per hit divided by 2 to get the average damage per hit, and then you multiply that by the attacks per second to get the DPS. So it's a 480 DPS weapon with crit. That's a lot of DPS, right? So when it comes to one-handed weapons, the highest you need at endgame-ish to like carry yourself through the game is usually about 300. Perfect one-handed weapons can go up to 600 plus DPS, so I mean, we're not perfect, but we're pretty high up there, which is why it's worth so much currency. Oh, this was just a funny ID. I picked up a jewel and ID'd it, and it had perfect 4 damage properties. Spell damage, phys damage, area damage, attack, and cast speed. So physical damage and spells that limits you to Glacial Cascade, Blade Vortex, and Blade Fall, more or less. Those are the only phys damage area spells. Ethereal Knives would be projectile damage, not area. But perfect ID, this is probably worth a couple X. And this is another just random ID. This was off of a Hydra. It's a Shaper one-handed sword, and it's got 2 phys damages extra mods, which means it's approximately 2.5 hatreds. Actually, no, probably closer to 2 hatred auras on your offhand. I believe this had an open suffix on it, so I could craft global crit multi, but it ID'd like that, which is just kind of stupid. Alright, these are well-rolled high DPS grip gloves. So grip gloves have the projectile attack damage implicit. That means they're good for ranged attack builds. So things like Barrage, Tornado Shot, Spectral Throw, whatever, they want this type of thing to get the maximum DPS on it, right? And it also has phys damage to attacks, attack speed, accuracy, and life, and a high amount of resistances. That's basically all the mods you want, just not perfect tiers. So if this had like, I think this is tier 2 attack speed, tier 1 accuracy, tier 1 fire res, and then crafted life phase, right? If this had T1 phase, T1 life, this would be worth so much more, but it's still a really high DPS pair of gloves. It's a very good item to sell. What do we have here? LE weak on hit gloves. So gloves, even if they're not unique gloves, sometimes rare gloves you pick up, they're like, oh, these are good rolls, but this probably not good enough to sell for me, at least in standard league. It's like life, resistances, accuracy, some mana on top of it. It's a good pair of gloves, but it's probably going to sell for like maybe 10 to 20 chaos. So instead of putting that in the sales tab and taking up the space, I opted instead to vol it to hope for a curse on hit implicit. I got pretty lucky here with it. I hit level 12 LE weak on hit, which is like the best in slot mod for like attack based elemental builds. So I got pretty lucky on that one. The other good vols on gloves are like vulnerability on hit, elemental weakness on hit. You have, what else can you get? Temp chains on hit is pretty good. +1 gems is decent, but not usually super sought after. You generally want LE weak or Volm on hit. Those are the most popular DPS ones. What do we have here? This is a 6-link 2-handed sword. I don't remember why I made this. I think this is when we were trying to craft a really good 2-handed crit sword. This has tier 2 fizz and T1 attack speed and crafted fizz damage. So if like, I think this is around 450-ish PDPS, physical DPS, and then like 100 LE on top of that. It's not the best 2-handed sword, but like crit 2-handed swords are kind of rare to come by when you're crafting. So I just went ahead and sold it already instead of re-rolling the item. Here's another pair of gloves that are good to vol. Shaper's Touches, they're usually about 20 chaos, if that. If you vol them, you hit LE weak on hit. This is also one-off perfect pair, right? So it's got level 12 LE weak. It goes from level 10 to level 12. Same thing as the other pair of gloves. It's very high rolled, good unique for like low life RF builds, strength stacking low life RF builds. They love this thing because it gives you % energy shield per 10 strength. So if you stack like 1,000 strength, that's 200% ES. Like, good pair of gloves, right? And then LE weak on hit on top of that for your Righteous Fire character. That's a solid pair. Okay, so in standard, remember, this is during Abyss League, right? It's hard to get Abyss Jewels in Standard. It's even harder to get well-rolled Abyss Jewels in Standard. So this had life, chance to gain onslaught on kill, cast speed if you dealt the crit recently, so it's perfect for a life-based caster. I mean, the armor roll is kind of bad, but everything else is good. They're all T1s. This guy paid 16x for it. I just chaos spammed it. Paid like, I think, an X for the base, if that, and then chaos spammed it into this relatively easily. Solid profit margin. Oh yeah, here's an example of what not to do when you're trying to buy something from someone. So this guy PMs want to buy Viridian Jewel 25C, right? There's only a couple of Viridian Jewels in my stash, but I'm gonna need you to be slightly more specific, because I don't know what the fuck you want from me. Just don't do this. Just copy paste the message from PoE Trade. It's so much easier. Okay, so this is one of the amulets that we crafted on the way to making Beast Scarab, trying to create the amulet that I'm using on my Lacerate Slayer. I didn't succeed, but I chaos spammed into this mod, or this item, and I was like, holy shit, that's an insanely good amulet that I'm not going to re-roll, even though it's not what I wanted. Like, this is a ridiculously good item, right? It's got Elder attack speed, T2 strength, T2 life, T2 all res, Elder non-chaos is extra chaos, so it's a ton of DPS, and I didn't want to re-roll the item, so I just threw it in a tab. I think it was listed for like 100x. This guy approached me for a trade with this sword, Spirit Fang Jeweled Foil. This is I think it was a PvP sword or something. I don't know why it's like this, but it's a 475 PDPS one-handed sword, and it's already mirrored, which means you can't change it like at all. But I mean, this is worth a minimum of like 200x, right? So I was like, yeah, sure, I'll take that, no question. Fuck it. And this is actually the sword that you saw me use in the 13 million Shaper DPS Inquisitor build. Like, this is how I got that sword. I chaos spammed this amulet and traded it for like a 200x sword. Sure. What do we have here? Alright, so for those who are confused, this is an alt art item. Alt arts are old race rewards. You can only get them from racing, and this is a race reward from, I think, a couple of years ago. So Redbeak is just, I mean, it's decent unique, right? But it's a well-known alt art, and it looks like a gladiator sword, and people really like having this sort of stuff. And I've been kind of liquefying my alt art collection. I just wanted to sell it, so I dropped it for 90x. What have we here? High DPS Steel Ring. This is actually like a really, really good steel ring, right? It's got Fizz 2 attacks, it's got life, it's got accuracy, it's got global crit and chaos 2 attacks. Like, that's just, even just these three mods, Fizz, accuracy, life on a steel ring are really good. The requirement for steel rings is that you always get Fizz damage to attacks on them. This is tier 1 Fizz, perfect T1 accuracy, T2 life, and then it's got additional damage mods on top of that, so the ring becomes very, very expensive because of that. Another good Vol Orb. I hit level 12 Vuln on a Shaper's Touch. Ellie Week is worth a lot more than Vuln, but it's still a good Vol Orb. These are alt art Prismatic Eclipses. This is actually what funded most of the first crafting sessions on the Beast Scarab Onyx Amulet. Again, the Slayer Amulet that we made. I sold them for a pair of them, which, I mean, you could dual wield them, right? This is a 110x and a mirror, which I think is around 330x at the time. Yeah, I think it was 330x. Mirrors have gone up a little bit since then, but solid sale of alt arts. If you have any old alt arts from when you used to play this game, they're probably worth a shitload of currency. I recommend checking them out on PoE Trade. Alright, so this is a 6-link plus 3 lightning gem staff. Lightning gems are not super popular when it comes to staff, but I mean, you can make these yourself. I actually have a video in the Demi Splains playlist on how to craft a plus 3 chaos gem staff for Dark Pact or Blight or whatever you want to use it for. This is like the same crafting method, but for lightning gems. It's actually a lot easier to craft elemental gem staffs because you can use essences to get them. You can like force a +2 with an essence. You could just force +2 lightning with, where is it? This guy. And then you can just do the technique, your end product here. I think it cost me a grand total of like 5x to make this, since you can buy a 6-link staff for like 1 to 2x, or just buy div cards for it. And then you can just use that method to craft yourself a pretty good multi-modded staff. Sell it for 12x, so I made 7x profit. What am I looking at here? I was like, why is Inya's here? So what I'm selling here is an item level 86 pair of two-tone boots. You couldn't really get item level 86 two-tone boots before, but you need I-85 now for the new tier 1 movement speed, so the crafting bases are worth a little bit. If you hit like high item level opal rings, steel rings, marble amulets, two-tone boots, like stuff like that, grip gloves, spike gloves, any of the new stuff, they tend to sell for a little bit, especially if they're really, really high item level. So people wanted to craft a new mirror pair of boots with new movement speed or whatever, so they paid quite a bit for the base. I mean, not quite a bit, 25C, but it's better than nothing. What do we have here? Alright, Topaz Ring. Rings, stat 2-1 on rings. You want life resist, DPS if possible, right? This has tier 1 life, 2 tier 1 resistances rolls, some strength on top of that. Every 2 points of strength gives more life, and then I crafted added flat fizz to attacks. It's a pretty solid starter ring. It doesn't have like tier 1 fizz or anything like that, and the ES roll is probably wasted on a life-based build, but lots of resistances. In total, this is probably like, what, 110, 120% res with like 90 life and fizz to attacks. Like, that's a lot. So it sells for a couple X. What do we have here? +1 gems. Again, good corruption on gloves. These are actually like legacy percent ES. I evolved them a long ass time ago and kind of just forgot they were in my stash. But they were corrupted with +1 gems. +1 gems is really nice when it comes to like aura setups. You could put like a level 21 purity in there and it would become level 22. You can put a level 3 in power, level 4 in power in there, and it becomes higher level, and then bonuses apply to everything else in the links. Like, it's just a good corruption overall. This person is a low life elementalist, and they probably wanted this for their aura setups, so 12x. Alright, 6-link chess pieces. You can get 6-link chess out of the div cards quite often, usually for pretty cheap. So like when it comes to the start of a league, if you can pick up these type of div cards for really, really cheap, I believe this one was from Chains That Bind, 6-link body armor. These div cards are like 2, 3, 5C at the beginning of the league, right? If you buy these, you're paying, I don't know, 30 chaos for a 6-link. If you chaos spam that 6-link until it has decent stats, this has life resistances and armor, like 100 life, 80 res, 1.7k armor. Like, it's a pretty good 6-link. You can usually make pretty good profit just like selling those instantly. Another pair of spike gloves, similar to the projectile damage gloves earlier. These are the melee variant, so these are good for like any melee build, right? It's got a ton of life, so it's got life and hybrid life. And it's got accuracy, resistances, and mana leech. I just chaos spam these. I mean, I pick up the bases all the time when farming guardians, so you can just chaos spam these and make some decent profit out of it. Same thing here. These are Abyssal Belts. Again, in Standard League, it's hard to get Abyss-specific items during Abyss League, because you can only get them by ripping stuff from Hardcore League to Standard. I ripped these over, or actually no, I bought these from somebody. He had a bunch of them. He was playing Hardcore League, ripping them over, right? And I just chaos spammed them and sold them. I think I was paying like an X for a base, but I sold this single belt, which isn't even that good. It has life, strength, wed, flask effect duration. Like, it's not the best belt, but I sold it for, what, 55x? And I was like, oh, man, maybe I should do this. Maybe I should buy more belts and chaos spam more of them. So I actually did that, and I crafted a ton of these and sold a bunch of them for really, really high prices. Same thing over here. We got life, the good rolls, again, life, ES, elemental damage with attack skills, and then strength on top of that, some resist, some flask effect duration. Like, this is just a good, solid belt. In League, this would probably cost you a couple X. In Standard, when nobody has belts like this for sale, especially Stygians, you get to kind of price gouge a little bit. So I sold this one for 65, this one for 55. I'm already like 100x profit margins, and I only spent 2x on the bases. Like, come on, easy game. Now what do we have here? I don't actually remember. Oh, this is a Sambar Scepter. Alright, so item level 82 Sambar Scepters that are shaped. Pretty hard to get in Standard. Again, they're crafting bases. You can make like an insanely high DPS stat stick off of these, so you want a bunch of like fizz damage added as X rolls. This was just the base. It's not good rolls, but I sold just the base itself for 14x. Alright, solid pair of boots. You've seen these before. Life resist, movement speed pair of boots with a decent enchant on them. The enchant adds some value, but this is a, what, 110% resistances, 80 plus life, 30% move speed pair of boots, along with some mana on top of that and a good enchant. So pretty good pair of boots. Random IDs while mapping again. This is a fire damage, maximum ES pair, or jewel right here. So that's really good for low life righteous fire or any other fire damage caster, scorching ray, whatever. They're all generic rolls. They work for all of those builds. And then I went and exalted it because I was like, okay, if I hit burning damage on this, it's going to be worth a crap load of money, because that would be literally perfect for Scorching Ray Righteous Fire builds. But I hit Global Crit Multi. Not ideal, but still really good for an ES-based crit caster that has to be fire damage. Okay, so this is a weird trade that I did. This is a 6 off-color Lion's Eyes Vision. So when it comes to attack-based builds that are ranged, if you can get a 7-link setup, like you have a 6-link, right? But it's also supported by level 15 Pierce. So that's another more multiplier on top of everything else. The issue is if you're a ranged build, you need a lot of greens and blues, especially if you're an elemental attack-based ranged build. You're going to need green for your skill, and then blues for most of your multipliers, and then weapon elemental damage, GMP most likely. But yeah, 5 off colors is really, really hard to get. So I priced it pretty high. I think it was like 30x or something, maybe more than that. But he traded me a pair of Legacy Facebreakers above 800% multi, and then an Alt-Art Heat Shiver on top of that. I don't know how much these were worth. I think these were like 10x or something, but this was like 40 to 50x at the time, and I was like, what? I would have taken just that, no question. But if Facebreakers on top of that, sure. But when it comes to trading stuff, just like, if somebody makes you a good offer, like, I was pretty sure this wouldn't sell for 30x. He offered me at least 50x in stuff, and I was like, fuck, sure, give me that. 6-link Disfavor always is probably, I'm pretty sure I've never seen a league where 6-link Disfavor is like less than 10x. It's a decent rolled one, but Disfavor only draws from Uber at Zeri. It's always like a minimum of a couple x for just the base. 6-link on top of that adds more value. Alright, here we're getting into some legacy stuff on standard. You can't craft percent increased energy shield on rings anymore. They made that roll go legacy in 3.0, I think, so anything with that roll on it, if it's a well-rolled ring, is pretty expensive. Plus 3 unsets were actually only able to be crafted in 3.0 as well, I think, on top of that. Or maybe it was 2.6 and 3.0, I don't know. There was a pretty small window of when those things could be made, right? So I made a bunch of plus 3s with percent ES on them for my Righteous Fire builds, and I just have had them since then for high prices. And so they just kind of trickle out occasionally, but I chaos spammed into this, crafted percent ES, sold it for the 26x. It's really good for low life RF though. Plus 3 gems is like a level 4 in power for your ring slot without the mana multiplier. What do we have here? 6-link Tremor Rod. Any 6-link good unique will sell for quite a fair amount. This is probably about 8x. Perfectly rolled Dying Sun. I believe we got this from running Shaper, but 10% reduce is perfect, 25% AoE is perfect. So it sells for more than a normal rolled one. I think normally they're about an x, x and a half. Perfectly rolled is 3x. So if you're selling uniques, just make sure you try to check the roll ranges if it's like a relatively higher value unique. Because if it's a really well rolled unique, on top of it being a sought after unique, it's going to be worth quite a bit more. Another example of an unset ring I crafted when you could craft these. Percent ES, faster start of energy shield recharge, dex in ES. So if you're on the top right side of the tree, or the top side of the tree, it's pretty hard to get a lot of dex on your gear. So like casters that are up here playing CI builds or whatever, they're not going to have much dex on their gear at all. Or summoners, for example, if they're going like this section of the tree down into here, they're not going to have any dex anywhere on their tree, more or less, right? So those type of builds, they need dex on their items. And then ES, percent ES, flat ES on top of that. This looks like it's a low life Necromancer support. That's like, this is all the stats they want, and they're all T1 or T2 rolls. So it's a very, very valuable ring. I think we've seen this exact helm before, actually. No, it was a Rat's Nest at the beginning of this video. This is our Sarkonjas with the 3 Molten Strike projectiles enchant. Very good helm with a very good enchant. Becomes pretty expensive. This is actually in Abyss League. This is my Abyss hideout. So 20x in Abyss for that enchant. Pretty solid. This may have been around the time when Mathel was playing Molten Strike. I'm not sure. He tends to cause the value of things to go up accordingly. Level 21 Flame Golem. So skill gems. We kind of talked about this before. If you have a level 20/20 gem and you vol it and it goes +1, it adds a ton of value. A 20/20 gem by itself, corrupted, is probably like 10/20C, right? But level 21, 4x. And Flame Golem is really good for the Golem builds, right? If you have like 5 Golems, this is an Elementalist, probably playing Golemancer. Alright, this is a high Elemental DPS one-handed sword, right? So Elemental attack builds such as Inquisitor or Pathfinder, they don't care if it's a bunch of different elements because they get Global Pen or they ignore resistances entirely with this Inquisitor, for example. This is really good for Ellie Blade Flurry. I believe this was around, I don't remember, I think it was like 300 to 400 LE DPS or something like that with crit multi and attack speed. Like it's a really good sword. And it sold for 20x. Alright, so here we are at a 6-link Astral Plate. You can get these from another div card, which I think we've mentioned before, but there's a div card for 6-link Astral Plate called, what's it called? Celestial Justicar? Celestial Justicar? It gives you a maximum of an item level 80 Astral Plate that's already 6-linked, right? So you buy those cards, you get a 6-link white item. If you turn it in on level 80 or higher, you get a level 80 base, and then you can just chaos spam it until it's pretty good. I chaos spam this, it ended up with, what is that, 36 plus 47, that's like 80, 100 something, 140% res with 100 plus life and a decent amount of armor on top of that. It's a pretty solid chest. It's not a unique chest, but I mean, it's a really, really well rolled rare chest. So sold it for 25x. It's got T1 cold, T1 chaos, T2 life, T2 armor, and then crafted lightning res. Level 4 enlightens. These are kind of similar to level 21 gems. If you level up Enlighten, Enhance, and Power to level 3, and then you vol it and it hits +1 gems, it becomes pretty valuable. I think this is about 300 chaos or so, which I think was about 6x in League at the time. They take a long time to level up, but if you do level them up all the way and manage to hit the corrupt, then you can make a pretty good profit off of them. You can also level gems in your offhand. A lot of people don't know this. You have a weapon swap. You can press X to get it. But you can actually put weapons in your offhand, throw gems in those offhand weapons, and just map with them. You'll level them up passively without affecting your main skills. So you can level up like 6 empowers or enhances in your offhand, or level 20, or whatever skill gem you want to level up in your offhand, and then vol those if you hit +1s. Then they add a bunch of value, and you didn't affect your setup at all. So it's just like another way to make currency in the offhand. This is a Tempest Binding with a Ice Golem buff effect. This is the Uberlab enchant. It's kind of a weird one. I didn't really expect this to sell, but this guy's, it looks like Hierophant playing some weird Ice Golem build. I don't know, I didn't question it. Good Uberlab enchant on a good helm, 8x. Sedima's Touch, LE weak on hit. Unique pair of gloves. These are generally worth a chaos, if that, right? If you vol them and you hit LE weak, vol temp chains, that adds a ton of value. So I invested a vol orb and I made 5x out of it. Same thing here. Worm Signs aren't really meta. They're kind of interesting because you get Rampage while at maximum endurance charges. You get life, you get a 5 link in your gloves. I just vol these because they're not worth anything usually, and I hit LE weak on hit. I believe I sell them later for like an X or 2, I'm not sure. Another item that I voled. So this is a Meginor's Girdle. I was looking for +1 endurance charges on this vol. But I evolved it into just a really good belt. It's got 85 res, ES, armor, elemental damage with attack skills, perfect tier 2, flask effect duration on top of that. Like it shouldn't have done that. Usually when you vol an item into a rare, a unique into a rare, it becomes a pile of shit. This turned into a really good belt. So I was like, alright, seems fine. 6 link Corrupted Uriel's Fostering, 12x. This is the Maim on hit version, but it also had perfect life, I think. I don't know, just a good unique 6 link with 4 off colors. This is a mirror service. A lot of people ask me if I make the majority of my currency from mirror services. Judging by this video, this is the first mirror service we've come into, and I made 30x out of it. I've made a couple 100x without mirroring anything. So like I've had 23 total mirror services since I started my mirror thread last October or so, October 2016, I think. I don't make a lot of currency off mirror services. My main thing is just crafting my own gear, and then if the gear is considered to be good enough to be up for service, I'll throw it in my mirror service tab. But like, I don't make the majority of my currency off of it. I make the majority of my currency off of selling things or flipping currency. It's just kind of like a way for people to get my item. But the breakdown for this dude is perfect legacy flat ES, perfect legacy percent, one off perfect legacy hybrid. These are all T1s. Then I have tier 2 int, tier 2 cold, perfectly divined, and the 20% reduced dot mod, which is now legacy as well. So this is 4 legacy rolls and 2 T2 rolls. Really, really good low life RF shield that you can't make anymore. So the mirror service fee for that is, I believe, 50x now. It was 30x at this point. I don't know. I kind of got bored of having different, or not bored, annoyed of having different fees across the board. So I just set them all to 50 to be easier to answer what's the fee on this question. What do we have here? Another high ES shield. This is +2 cold gems. That doesn't really matter. It's a bad roll. So the main important rolls on this are ES resistances. 460 ES with like, what is that, 60% plus res and some mana regen on top of it? Sure, 5x. Alright, so this is just kind of funny. I was farming Minotaurs. This is the first time I've ever had a Diala's Malefaction drop, and it dropped as a 5 socket. I just immediately went to hideout and voled it, and I hit the +1 gems corruption, which is just like, I think it's like a 1 in 100 chance of that happening. And I've never seen the item drop before, but I hit the right corruption immediately, and I was pretty happy about it. Another Venters. So again, the way you price check Venters, look at by quant, by total maximum resistances, or total res, and then life on top of that. This is a pretty good amount of life resists and decent quant, so 8x. I think it's actually similar to the other one. That might be like the exact same. I don't know, I'd have to check the first couple screenshots, but that looks like the same as the first one, similar value. This is the birth of Ghoulbane. A lot of you have seen or have asked me about my Stat6 Scepter. This is when we first exalted the prefix. I alt-regaled it until it had Fizz damage as fire, extra chaos, and attack speed. I went and blocked the attack mods, and then I exalted Fizz's extra lightning, so I ended up with a triple T1 prefix item, basically. And then I bought a shitload of divines, and divined those to perfection. That took 330 divines or so to make these all perfect. Then I sold my mirror from the Prismatic Eclipse trade earlier in this video, and then we meta-crafted it and deleted all of the exalts and ended up with nothing. Yeah, that was a pretty fun session though. This was a middleman mirror service. This wasn't actually my belt. I think it was Gemling Queen's belt, but sometimes when you're like, if this is your first mirror item you've crafted, you don't have the credibility in your vouching thread or your mirror thread to have somebody actually give you a mirror straight up, so you find a middleman. A lot of people go to Ziz, Mathel, me, like you just can't, like, it's not safe for either of you, so you'll find a middleman, right? So what happens is you give me your mirror belt, the original, and the other person gives me their mirror and the fee, and then I'll do the mirror service for them and trade you your original back and the fee, and then the other person the copy, so that basically neither one of you is in control of the entire trade at any one time. I am, and I'm live on stream so you can see what's going on, but it allows both parties to get what they want, and I think I got a little bit of a tip out of it. I don't remember. What do we have here? This is an item level 85 mirrored spike shield base. It's not well rolled, but it is a high tier base, and it's shaped, so it sold for a couple X. Another pair of good boots. These have the I think that's Merciless Leech enchant, but they're life, dual res, movement speed, strength. So I mean, high life, good res boots with movement speed. They always sell for something, but if you add a good enchant on top of that, it adds more value. Same thing here. Pair of unique death stores. I think normally without an enchant they're like 1 or 2x, but if you add a good Uberlab enchant on top of that, they become worth a lot more. Perfect Biscos for 3x. This is a good example of the disparity between League and Standard, right? In League, a perfect Biscos would cost you like 30x, but in Standard, because before this League, or before last League, I'm not sure, this used to be how Biscos always dropped. There was not a range of rolls on these, and it was not a tier 1 unique. So it was like really, really cheap and extremely powerful, and it was always perfectly divined. All you had to do was bless the implicit. So because of that, in Standard, you could buy a perfect Biscos for like 3 to 4x. They're not worth anything because of how common they were, but in leagues like such as Abyss Forward, they're going to cost you a lot more. They buff the rarity to like tier 1 unique, which means they're really, really hard to get, and you have to actually divine them a lot to get rolls like this. High ES pair of boots with a good enchant, similar as the other pair of boots. These don't have movement speed, but they have high flat, high percent, and high intelligence, and then like bad resist but crafted elemental damage attack seals. The crit strike chance, if you haven't crit resistantly, is a really powerful mod for trappers and miners, because your traps and mines never actually kill anything. Or sorry, you don't actually kill anything, your traps and mines do. So you get this bonus all the time, even though you're using your mines to kill stuff. It's a really, really powerful crit enchant. That's like the equivalent of 3 diamond rings all the time. Level 21 skill gem. Again, if you've all these, you get extra value, right? So 2.5x for level 21 Cyclone. 6-link Carcass Jack. Decent rolls, 8x. This is actually the shield I used to use on Spider Queen, my CI Scion tank thing. I've actually replaced this with a shaped version with the percent ES on block since then, but I sold my old shield, which has Legacy Flat, Legacy Percent, Legacy Hybrid, and then Legacy Reduced Dot for low life RF builds, along with high block, high int. It's a pretty damn good shield nowadays that you can't craft anymore at all, so 80 exalts. Spike gloves, tri-res. This is actually tier 1, tier 2 resistances, so you end up with 120% resistances, and then life and phys damage to attacks. Pretty good pair of spike gloves, 2.5 exalts. I believe this is a perfect strength Dune Kubiari. Usually this weapon is used by strength-based Righteous Fire characters, such as mine, for example, uses it. My RF Chieftain uses this weapon. But perfect strength on top of that, I think the range is like 50 to 70, so it's a pretty high range. It's pretty hard to get perfect strength. 2x. Oh, this is Blight Cleave Astral Plate. I don't know if you guys have seen this video, but I crafted a insane Mind Over Matter Astral Plate with this thing. But this is what we Chaos Spammed it into, right? I got really lucky with this Chaos Spam, and I Chaos Spammed it into perfect life, perfect Fizz's Lightning, perfect damage taken from mana before life. Those are all prefixes, right? The issue is it has 3 suffixes. Fire, stun, and ES on kill. So I actually had to annul this to save it. We had a 50-50 shot of saving the item or 50-50 shot of ruining the item. I did hit the annul, and then I cleaned it up and ended up with this. It was really funny though, because these are all perfectly divined rolls. I didn't have to divine it at all. It was just like, well, it was just like that already. The finished product looks like this. Where is it? Right here. It now has tier 1 fire, tier 1 cold, and crafted lightning on top of it. So pretty good chest. I don't remember why I screenshotted this. I'm just buying essences from Horgan. If you ever need bulk essences in standard, Horgan's your man. He's like one of the few people who actually bothers to trade bulk essences. He's a good dude. Alright, Alpha's Howl, Cinder Strikel. So, these are good for Aura bots, right? This helm is specifically used on Aura bots because of the 8% reduced mana reservation and the +2 Aura gems. So, if you want to enchant these through Uber Lab, you basically have to hit an Aura enchant with reduced reservation. So like any of the purities, vitality, discipline, hatred, haste, anger, wrath, like literally any aura, if it has reduced reservation on it from Uber Lab, the value of Alpha's Howl spikes accordingly. Usually it's like a 1C unique. It becomes worth a couple X if you hit a good enchant on it. Another stupidly high DPS steel ring. This is again legacy % ES. I made a bunch of these for my Wander, the fastest lemon. But it's tier 1 Fizz, tier 1 Wed, and then % ES crit int. Just a high DPS ring that you can't craft anymore. It has a pretty good name, Tempest Finger. I mean, it's a great name, 50x. Winds of Change. Again, another example of a pair of unique gloves that aren't really worth much without following them. I hit +1 gems on it. They became worth, instead of like 10C, to an X.5. Oh, here's that stat stick we talked about from the Hydra kill earlier. With the dual Fizz added as X and crit multi-mod, sold it for 4x. Legacy Doomfletch 6-linked. It was Vald, so it became worth less. 4x sale. 6-link Impulsas. I think this is the one that I used on my Lightning Strike Static Strike Slayer build a couple weeks ago. I paid like 6x for it, and then I sold it for 10x. I'm not really sure why, but I used it for a build guide, resold it, sure. What do we got here? Life Mana, Tri-Res, Movement Speed, Boots. You've seen these a million times. High Resist, good Movement Speed, Life Mana on top of that. Couple X. 6-link +3 Chaos Gem Staff. We've talked about this as well. Same thing, 3x. This is actually, I think I spent more than 3x to make this, but I sold it for 3x, sure. Ellie Beacon hit Sedemas. Seen these before, 4x. 6-link Pledge of Hands. This one is actually perfectly rolled, so 120 to 160%. That means you have a 1 in 40 chance of getting it to be perfect with Divines. Adds quite a bit of value to it, and it's pretty good for a Mind Over Matter caster, so 8x. Alright, back to Steel Rings. This is a life... Alright, so Steel Rings, right? You have Fizz damage implicit. You need Fizz damage. It also has ES life and then resist suffix. You could potentially exalt this again to hit another resistance roll, but it's just a good Steel Ring. Sell it for an X.5. 6-link 5 off-color Lion's Eyes. Again, pretty expensive to get this many off-colors. 12x sale. Super high ES boots with mana, intelligence, and resistances. Really, really good for an ES character, but also the mana on top of that means it's good for mana stacking builds such as Mana Guardians. There is a Watcher's Eye jewel that gives you percentage of your mana gained as ES while affected by Clarity. So if you had a build that had like 10,000 mana, which is not hard to get, or I mean, not hard, it is pretty hard to get. It's possible to get that much mana, and you get a percentage of that as flat energy shield from that jewel, like it multiplies your total ES by a crap ton. I think there are people running low life RF this league with like 20k ES. My standard low life RF with legacy ES gear has like 17k ES, so that jewel's kind of broken. But this is a pretty good pair of boots for that style build. Another Headhunter, again, fuck Headhunter, but it's high rolled 70x. What do we have here? I don't really remember why this one sold for so much. It's % ES, burning damage, and strength int, which is really good for low life RF. The cold damage roll is not good though, so I would not have paid 5x for this personally, but probably closer to 1 to 2x for just those three. Again, just good for low life RF, Scorching Ray, whatever. Apparently I screenshotted 200x for some reason. I don't know why. I have more than that right now. That also, I don't know. Alright, so Sambar Scepter bases. I think we're getting into weird stuff. These aren't even trades anymore. Where am I looking at? 6-link Sambar Scepter ID5. I think it dropped like this and then we crafted into this meme. This is terrible, but it's funny. Alright, back to actual sales. ES, Tri-Res, elemental damage with attack skills on a Stygian base. Again, Stygians are hard to get in standard. 20x sale. 6-link High Life Astral Plate. 4x. Sin's Rebirth is always worth, I think, 3 to 4x most of the time. It's Unholy Might Flask. Gives you 30% of your Fizz added as Chaos. Pretty rare drop, but they always sell for a couple x. Alright, Tukohama's Fortress. This shield is pretty expensive without being well rolled, but this one is perfect life. so it multiplies the price accordingly. Again, if you have a high-end unique with high rolls on top of that, you can probably add a couple X to the price. It's going to be worth a lot more because it's perfect. There's the Volon Hit Shaper's Touch we voled earlier this video. Sold it for an X.5. And here is a really good stat stick Sambar Scepter. It has double T1 Fizz added as X rolls, so it's a good offhand for like Blade Flurry style builds. You get, what is that, 3 Hatreds worth of extra damage, and then Global Ellie Pen on top of it, so 50 Exile. Death's Doors with good enchants. We're seeing a lot of repeats, I'm sorry. But yeah, you've seen this before. What do we got here? High ES, high resistances with good enchant on top of that, 3x. Level 2120 Blood Magic, 3x. Level 4 Enlighten, okay, this one's different. This is an Elrond Diamond Ring. Not many people were picking these up from Elrond this league. I actually couldn't find -8 rings in League at all. But the only way to get minus mana cost of skills on a rare ring is to buy it from Elrond. So if you do your daily mission or you reset him, you can buy that. And then this one has tier 1 accuracy for the level of the ring. I believe when you buy stuff from Elrond, it's like level 49. 49, I'm sorry. So that's how you get those, right? This one, I regaled good accuracy on it, and then I multi-modded it for life ES global crit. So this is really good for like life brace, cost breach, discharge. That build needs -8 diamond rings, and it has everything else that the build wants, so worth quite a bit. Back to Abyss League. We're at, what is this? Perfect? Not perfect. This is T1 Fizz, Tri-Res, Life, pair of gloves. Good base, good item level, good rolls. Sells for a couple X. I don't know how to explain this screenshot. 6 Link Belly of the Beast, 5x. Alright, yeah, we're done. We're out of screenshots. I'll just leave it on this one. This video has been going for almost an hour, so I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, leave a like, leave a comment. Sorry, Twitch, for ignoring you for an hour while I record this video, but you told me to do it, so I don't know. Hopefully you guys learned something from this. If you did, leave a like. Subscribe to the channel. Follow me on Twitch if you want to see me make this sort of stuff live, or make all of these sales, because, I mean, probably a majority of these happened on Twitch, or just, I don't know, just ask questions. You'll learn a lot from stuff like this, hopefully, and I'll keep making them. But that'll be it for this video. I will see you guys in the next one. That'll be Demi out.